When I stopped flying the F16, it was kind of a sudden change in my life that I had to just give another step. But I was part of an elite group, and then I was kind of lost in between. And the gaming was a part of me going back into a community that I felt that I was important again. And I was able to look at even my F16, the way I left, with gratitude, and I was able to make peace with some things that did not go so well, with some people that was kind of upset. The biggest takeaway is, even when there seems we don't have reasons to have hope, we don't have any alternatives, there's always solutions and there's always an alternative. But you need to be ready to take responsibility, and this is the hardest step.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Life Edge podcast. I'm your host, Chris Staffelt. On today's episode, I have my friend Lorenzo here. He is a performance coach, and I'm going to let him start us off by telling a little bit about himself and what he offers.
Hi, so my name is Lorenzo. I'm from Portugal. I used to be a fighter pilot flying F16, the Portuguese Air Force. And as I left the Air Force last year, and decided on a career change to becoming a businessman and owning my own companies. I started with a performance coaching business where I focus in helping people live and perform at the best of their potential. So that's my definition of performance, is that you are able to live life to your full potential. And I do this in several areas of your life, improving your performance in your physical existence, spiritual existence, and also on your mind as well. And that's what I like to work with people.
Awesome. So I'm guessing that a lot of your desire for performance probably comes from your Air Force background, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Once you start working as a pilot, you learn about constant improvement. So every day that you go out there and you go fly your jet, you need to do it for some reason, and there's always a mission and there's always lessons learned to take from that mission. And there's not one single day that you go fly and you do everything perfect. So this really gets you in the habit of looking back at what you're doing and asking, what can I do better? What did I do today that can be improved tomorrow? And this, for me, is one of the key aspects of being a top performer, and living to your full potential is always a keen desire to improve.
Mm-hmm. So who would you say like is your ideal customer? What demographic do you think you're trying to target right now?
So my ideal customer are people on their early 30s, late 30s that are starting a family, have young kids, and they feel kind of stuck in their career right now. So they feel they have so much more to give, but they are not really having that opportunity. So my work focuses a lot in getting people, creating a vision on where they want to be, because I believe that wherever are our most deepest desires, that's what we are meant to do and what we can do. So by understanding where people want to go and knowing that they have more to give, creating a game plan on what is holding you back so that you can push and get better on your career without putting your family to the side. Because I believe that I have a big family, I have a wife and we have 4 kids, all small. And as a man, we need to be fulfilled in different areas and aspects of our life. Otherwise, if you have a great career, we are the CEO of an amazing company, but you go home and you're alone, you're going to be unfulfilled. The other aspect is also true. If you have a great family, but you don't have money to feed them, you're going to be unfulfilled as well.
Mm-hmm. So it sounds like with the way you're describing it, you're more so of like a life performance coach, but not just you're not just focused on business. You really want to help people improve their whole life as a whole. Is that correct?
Absolutely, yes. I call it performance coach because I like to focus on performance, but if we are very specific with the term, I'm actually a life coach. as in I like to work with people on several aspects of my life, of their life, and I'm in that unique position because of a career that I have that was extremely competitive. I have a family that is growing, and that's a very important aspect of my life. And I also have a very rich spiritual existence. So when we combine these three aspects of life, I believe that's where we can go and achieve great things and give to the society, give back to the community, to the places where we live in, to the places where we work, and we make a better world for everyone, actually.
I love that answer because it's not just about for your. A lot of times people get like worried about sometimes life coaching is all about just how can I just get out and make money and work from home. And with that answer, it's so genuine from you that it's no, you care about people. You really want to help improve the world that we live in today. And you see that reaching out to the community is the way to help improve the world. And I really love that response you gave. So
yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's true, and it's true because I've seen this. I mentored students in the Air Force for over 10 years, and I hired my coach last year for the first time, and you see the impact that can have on your life. For me, it helped me a lot going through vices that I've had in my life that I sometimes I was able to go through them, but with someone else, with a life coach, can give you a lot of perspective. And a good coach is someone that is going to challenge you, is going to make you ask the difficult questions that sometimes you don't do it yourself. And will also make sure that you remain accountable for what you do. And this makes a huge difference.
How much of your experience as a fighter pilot, but not only as a pilot, as a teacher, how much of that translates into what you're doing today?
I think it translates a lot. Well, as I started my fighter pilot career, I didn't immediately go fly the F16. I started flying as an instructor pilot on the Alpha Jet. So what I would do is I would teach students their transition to become fighter pilots. And during that time, I did a master's in human resource management. So when I finished this course, I started mentoring my students and making regular meetings with them to help them define goals, to make them accountable for their goals, and create sort of a plan to what are you going to do after this training is over. And this helped a lot of them improving their performance, getting the assignments they want, learning how to deal when you don't have the assignments you want. For example, we would get every year 5 or 6 students, but only 2 or 3 would go to the F16. So many of them would be kind of having their dreams crushed in the end of the course. So all of this is important to manage expectations, to give them the right tools, to put things in perspective. And even when it seems that you had a defeat, take your lessons, learn, and improve on that.
That makes a lot more sense, the jump from where you were at as the fighter pilot into what you're doing now, because you were already a life coach. You were just very specific to the Air Force. It was it's not like you're coming out trying to do something new. You were already doing this as an instructor. So that makes a whole lot more sense.
I was at the time, I would call myself more of a mentor than a coach at that time. I think mentors are people who are experts in a specific area and might be some years ahead. And that was the case when I started being an instructor. Some of my students, I was only 1 or 2 years ahead of them, but I could give them some advice. And as I gained seniority, I would be more time ahead. But I would only focus on the career aspect. Unless they had some kind of personal problem, then of course I would also help them out. So that's more of a mentor role, which can be important as a life coach. But the life coach, I like to see it more as like we see a coach in a football team. He needs to manage and increase the performance of the whole team. And I see several aspects of our lives as the team members or team players. And the life coach is kind of someone that helps you have good performance from the team, which is actually your life.
What do you think? So let's just speak right now just to performance. So those that are like you talked about, those mid 30-year-olds, what is the number one thing that's keeping them from being like an ultimate performer in their life?
Well, I would say from my experience, the biggest thing that's preventing are false beliefs and the vices that we get. And those sometimes are not that obvious. I mean, the people I talk with, and this was me 5-6 years ago. I was a pilot in the Air Force. I was flying the F16. I had 2 kids at the time. My life was rock and roll. But I felt something inside me that I was not quite where I wanted to be. And I didn't notice it right away. And I think most people don't do it either. So we start wanting to be part of the group. We start drinking alcohol. We start spending money on things that don't really fulfill us, for people to like us more, or because we get that adrenaline rush of doing something different. But at the end of the day, when you go back home and you go to bed, you feel kind of an emptiness on your heart. And that's I think the big tell sign. And sometimes what we do is we make everything so that that feeling does not surface. So what we can notice and help us understand that we are in that position is we have a beautiful life on paper, but we have a lot of vices. Maybe alcohol, maybe a lot of movies, maybe drugs, maybe gaming addictions, maybe men that are married but are looking at all other women in their lives. All of this, my wife is saying no. All of these are aspects that showing that you're in some kind of imbalance. And that's it. It's not because you're a bad person, because any of us can get there. If we don't treat your imbalances, we're going to be looking for those things in all the wrong places.
And you just mentioned one vice that I think right now is going very overlooked for a lot of people, and that's the gaming addiction. I think so many people these days have a major gaming addiction, and it's been normalized because everybody wants to be that Twitch streamer that's getting paid to play video games, or the YouTuber that does nothing but stream video games all day. And that seems fun and exciting, but it really, like, a lot, I have friends, I know people that they spend way too much time playing games on consoles, and they're great and they're enjoyable, but they're very addicting. And even these, like, I watch people that are addicted to their phone, and you think, oh, they must be on social media or doing something else. No, they're over there playing some little game on their phone. And I've had to get it to where I've just deleted all games off my phone because I realized how much of a distraction they are to me. And I just don't even allow it to creep into my life anymore because it can be such a huge distraction. So what would be some advice for somebody who's maybe caught up, especially in that vice in particular, because it's a big one right now?
Yeah, I that was one of the vices that I struggled with, and I'm really happy to say that last year, 25th of March, I remember the date, 25th of March last year was the last day I played a game that I was completely addicted, and it was a mobile phone game. And the biggest advice I can give, and to put really things in perspective, and that's what helped me just kind of snap out of it, is understanding what will be the cost, or what is the potential cost of the game. Because I had my eldest daughter sometimes, Father, leave the phone alone, look at us, talk with us. And I was like, hey, don't bother me. I'm busy now. And at some point just kind of clicked me like, hey, what am I doing? If I keep this up, it's not 1 month or 6 months or 1 year, but 2, 3, 4, 5 years. Some point your kids stop talking to you. They stop getting bothered by you being away on your phone on your game. But in my opinion, the root cause is a little bit deeper, and it has to do with the young adults that do not want to grow up. And I've seen this with some of my clients, as people live when they are dating and having their boyfriends and girlfriends. But speaking of men, having their girlfriends, they live as if they are married. And when they get married, they live as if they were boyfriend and girlfriend. And it's kind of our generation sometimes seems that does not want to grow up. And those video games, it's kind of remembering and keeping us on our juvenile states where we don't have many responsibilities. We don't have to worry about tomorrow. Everyone takes care of us. And we don't take ownership of what it means to be a man.
Yeah. Wow. There's a lot to unpack there, because I can't agree with you more that it's an escape from reality. I think that a lot of our generation, like you said, is just doesn't want to deal with the facts of life. And so if I get involved in that video game or that game console, whatever it is, all I have to think about is what I'm doing here. And a lot of those games, they're very stimulative. There's so much going on, but if you screw up, you can try over and you can start over and you can try a different path. Whereas in like a lot of us, we've all made mistakes in life, but you don't get to go do that over. You have to own the mistake and then keep going forward. And that's hard to do when I can just hit restart on a video game and I don't have to own anything. I can just start from the beginning.
Yeah, and it's also kind of, for me at least, it were two things. I started I always had some problems with gaming throughout my life, on and off. But this one, for example, resurfaced when I stopped flying the F16. When I stopped flying the F16, it was kind of a sudden change in my life that I had to just give another step. But I was part of an elite group, and then I was kind of lost in between. And the gaming was a part of me going back into a community that I felt that I was important again. And these communities online give us kind of we are behind the avatars. It's not really us. It's we feel a little bit more safe, and it's easier to get accepted. But it's not, like you said, it's not reality. It's not our true selves, and it's really important to live life where we are, the real life, because there's so much to do, to build, to improve, to serve. We are put in this world for a reason, to do something, not just to entertain ourselves throughout life. Nothing bad with the entertaining from time to time and to rest. All that is necessary. All that is part of life. But when we spend most of our time, and I saw people sometimes that are working, but they're on social media or doing their games or doing whatever. I used to do this. I used to be in work. I would do some tasks for the game. This is not right. It's not even fair to whoever is paying us our income for us to be playing a game. Oh, it's only 15 minutes or half an hour. Maybe so, maybe more. Who knows?
Yeah. You mentioned earlier that even though at one point you said I was flying the F-16, but I wasn't. You said that you could still feel that emptiness. Do you feel like I guess the question is, what do you think what was the reason for that emptiness? Because on the outside, you have the family, you have the dream job, because I've got to imagine flying an F-16 is a whole ton of fun, and you are in that elite group. And so from the outside, it looks like you've reached the top, you've reached the pinnacle. So where was that emptiness coming from?
Yeah, the reason that happened was that, so as I started flying the F-16, I had just got married. I had our first daughter. But as I was progressing, I felt two things: that I was not able to progress as fast as I felt I deserved or had the potential to learn. And on the other hand, I felt that I was not being real. I had to put some kind of masquerade for people to accept me. And this for me was the biggest trigger, because when you are in some place and you cannot be your true self as you are, it's not your place. And this I can look back and in hindsight see it, but I didn't see it right away because I wanted so much to be accepted by my peers that I would behave in ways that I was kind of ashamed of myself. Mm-hmm. And that starts creating this disconnect and the feeling of emptiness.
Yeah. And then, so I want to touch a little bit too on how much, when you stopped flying the F-16, how much of that was just depression, because that is the dream job, that is the pinnacle, you are having a blast. And you hear about this a lot in other special operators and those elite people in the military, is once they step out of that role, it feels like you've hit the top of the mountain and now you're coming down. And so, like, it feels like it's not true that life has nothing left to give you that's going to be that fulfilling. So how did you reconcile a lot of that? So
depression. I'm no psychologist or a doctor to be able to say what I had or not, but I was absolutely depressed. And have in mind that this was during 2021. So COVID hitting, this hitting, and I think it was absolutely too much for me to deal with. So what I did was the gaming, yes. I started eating a lot. I put on a lot of weight, in excess of 20 pounds of weight in 1 year. And I completely swamped myself with work. So the new place that I went to, I found a lot of projects to work on. Together with my boss, we completely reframed the courses and the qualifications on that squadron that we were in. And I was really busy with work and kind of numbed the pain away. Until the day that last year my youngest daughter was born, I had to take parental leave. And that was a really wake-up call for me. It was like, hey, you are moving towards burnout. You're going to kill yourself. That's what I felt, actually. And this was a big driver for me to leave the Air Force. Because I was supposed to take command of a squadron. I changed the whole course for pilots in the Air Force for forming our pilots. And I was supposed to be taking command of the squadron. But I was like, no, I cannot do this. I need the support. The Air Force is not giving me the support that I requested, and I just need to go. And when I decided this, that's when I hired my coach. I did something that was completely transformational for me. I did a week of gratitude, where I went through my whole life and looked at moments of my life with the perspective and the eyes of gratitude. And I was able to look at even my F-16, the way I left, with gratitude. And I was able to make peace with some things that did not go so well, with some people that I was kind of upset. And this really helped me move forward.
Whoa. Thank you for sharing that and just being so vulnerable, because, wow, that's powerful. And I don't think that everybody's transformation is going to be quite as drastic. Like, it sounds like you were like, I'm up against the wall and I'm making a change. And what would you say? Like, what would you tell the person who hasn't made that change yet, who's feeling like they're about to burn out, who's feeling that emptiness and just trying to fill it with more work or more addictions or more vices? Like, what is your advice to somebody in that position?
I would say that there are options. You have options. You don't have to keep doing what has not been working for you over and over again. Because sometimes we tend to think we don't have options. When I told my family that I was going to leave the Air Force, you can imagine their relation, the way they reacted. Like, no, you can't do it. You have 4 kids. How can you leave the Air Force? It's a steady job. No, I'm leaving. It's done. You also have to take responsibility for the decisions. And I'm not going to tell it was an easy decision, because it wasn't. It took me 9 days of deep inner work and trying to understand what I was called for, because I always believed I had a vocation to be a military and to be a pilot, and I wanted to have leadership roles in the Air Force. It didn't happen that way, but the biggest takeaway is, even when there seems we don't have reasons to have hope, we don't have any alternatives, there's always solutions and there's always an alternative. But you need to be ready to take responsibility. And this is the hardest step. Taking responsibility sometimes can seem hard, but with the right support can be done. And this is where I think either getting a coach or sometimes getting therapy, because some things need a deeper help. Some things a coach can help, others you need a therapist. But it helps to get some outside perspective too. But first, it's your own decision. You need to look at you, okay, this is not serving me. I need an alternative, and I'm going to do whatever it takes.
I love that, because I think that is the most important piece for anyone who's listening. If you want to transform, if you want to get out of the position that you're in, you have to be willing to own the fact that the reason you're there is because of your decisions. And like, sure, there's things that are out of your control that happen to you. But if you don't own everything, even the stuff you can't control, you're always going to be that victim. You're always going to be stuck doing the same things. Sure, like you couldn't control what country you were born in just as much as I couldn't control what country I was born in. Those are out of our control, but we have to own like what state you're living in, all that stuff. You just have to say, you know what, it is what it is, and I'm going to move forward. Like I've made decisions that have got me here, and I'm going to own them. I'm going to take control of my life now, and I'm going to make decisions that get me to where I want to go. So I just think that is the most important piece. I know for me in my life, I was like, I went to school, I got an education, I went and got the good job, but I was still unhappy. I was just like you, like I was just as unhappy because I realized I wasn't living out to my full potential. I wasn't doing what I knew that I could do on this planet. And until I was willing to own the fact, and I watched other people around me succeed, and I was like, oh, they must have got lucky, or they must have had this. And it's like, no, they made better decisions than I did. Sure, we're all at different spots in the race, but they made better decisions with what they were given. So I need to own the fact that I made crappy decisions. I made bad decisions with the options I was given, and I need to start making better decisions from here on out. And that thank you for sharing that, because I truly believe that's the key.
Yes, but also do it out of a place of love. We sometimes we are too harsh on others, and sometimes on ourselves, depend. And when I say a place of love, is not don't accept everything that you did like it's fine, because not everything is fine. And but also look with kindness to yourself. Okay, I didn't know it. I didn't know better. But now you do. And that's all you can control is right now. And that's where you need to act. And also look at your future self, making sure that you are not going to have to look at yourself back and, oh, I had a chance. I decided not to, because it's always our decision. And even the aspects that we cannot control, I firmly believe that we are put on this world, and each one of us has a mission, but we have to say yes to the mission. We have to accept it. If we don't, someone else might have to carry it on. For example, our children. If we don't face our reality, they will have to do it. And the things that we cannot control, I like to always believe that they happen to our benefit. I always heard on a podcast, I don't remember which one it was, but this stuck for me forever, is that life is incredibly unfair, but unfair to our own advantage. And this really stuck me, because it is true. Even when things seem hard, it's for our own good. It's It's because we need that. We need the lesson. We need the hardship. Or it was because of some mistake that we did and we are paying for that. That's the way I see it.
Yeah, and you make such a great point right there, is that we need that hardship in order to grow. I just went through the last like 3 months have probably been some of the hardest months I've had in a long time.
Mm-hmm.
But now that I'm on the backside of that, I got to see how much I got to grow. I got to see the areas of life that I was lacking in, the places that needed improvement. And had that not happened, I wouldn't be able to then become the next version, the better version of myself. And that's so important. And then you also mentioned back there, you gave an analogy that I thought was amazing, is that we all have a mission, right? We've all been put here for this mission. And that's such a beautiful analogy, because I think for me, my emptiness, that hole, came from the fact that I was going against what my mission in life was. The fact that I knew I had something else that I was called to do, but it didn't matter. Like, I was fighting that mission, and that's where that emptiness came from, was I was not fulfilling who I was called to be.
For sure, it can happen. It can happen, absolutely. But it's interesting because, like you said, dealing with our pain, or dealing with the moment that we decide, can be really scary and can be really hurtful. And this is the aha moment that takes more effort, because you need to really be truthful with yourself. And we sometimes try to avoid that because it's painful. We don't like to say that we were wrong, that we did wrong. I tell it for myself. I hate when my wife criticizes me and tells me, "Hey, you do this." First thing, I get some defensive. But then, as it sinks in, it's like, no, yeah, you're right. I could do better. I can do better. I will do better. And it's a process.
Yeah, but so there's one thing there too that I would challenge a lot of the listeners to, is you still have to be open to change, because a lot of us, the husband-wife scenario, I used to get very defensive when my wife would critique me, but then I wouldn't ever get over it because I wasn't open to hearing what she was actually trying to say. I wasn't open to changing. I thought that I was correct. I thought that I was perfect at what I did, even though I was terrible at what I was doing. And so you got to be willing to accept that and realize, like, we're all humans. We're flawed. I'm not perfect. So maybe there's some actual truth behind. Sure, I didn't like the way that it happened, and I didn't like the way that I was told this critique, but there's probably some truth behind it, and I should consider it.
Yes, absolutely. And even if it's not truth, what I've come to realize is, if someone tells something that is unfair, the best response is no response. Just thank you, I appreciate, I'll take it. And then you think, no, what this person said is totally unfair. I put it in my pocket and I disregard it. And in that case, I don't get into an argument where I'm trying to defend that he's wrong, because then I'm making it about the person. And then I'm critiquing the person. And I'm a very critical person, okay? I'm not trying to say I'm not. But I think it's much better to not criticize people. We don't change anyone by what we tell them. We change people by our example, by what we do, by inspiring, by being ourselves. And then they will decide to change or not, but it's up to them. And I think this sometimes is important. But I forget it every day, okay? I'm not saying that I do this perfectly, because I don't.
How much of that did you learn being an instructor? Whereas, say you have a pilot and he keeps making this maneuver, keeps doing it properly. Did you have to learn, like, hey, quit being an idiot, you're braking left when you're supposed to brake right? Or was it like, can you explain to me why it is you always brake right when you're supposed to brake left?
Yeah, that's the instructor part. I think has to do a lot with yourself. So some things you can learn, and I was in a position to teaching instructors teaching pilots how to become instructors, and there's ways to do it, but it's something that kind of is born with you. So what you do is you throw situations to the person who is upgrading to become an instructor and see how they deal with it. And that's it, because being a pilot, you start with, they say that you start with a bag full of luck and a bag without any experience. And the idea is to fill up the experience bag before you run out of luck. So it's also the same.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, it is a funny saying. But for instruction is this: you just need to put yourself on the other person's shoes. And what worked for me, and what I tried to do with my students, was always trying to understand why they did it. Because that's where you can fix. When you understand the why, that's when you can fix. And sometimes the why is way deep. It's not readily seeable. So this is something that you need to practice as an instructor, is to learn to understand the why, to learn to ask good questions, and to be able to put yourself on the other person's shoes. Because it's very easy for an instructor, you do, when you're a student, you do a lot of stupid mistakes in the airplane. For all kinds of reasons. You're nervous, there's a lot of things going on, you lose control, you're not able to multitask. But as you gain experience, everything that seems really hard, for example, the first time people drive a car with the gears, seems hard. So the plane is the same. But an instructor, everything seems easy because they've done it a million times, and you can see the mistake happening even before they think of it. And it's like, come on, why are you doing that? It's very easy to lose patience. But it's very important to be patient. It's like our kids, when they're learning things. We can't always be rushing. Sometimes you just have to take the time and let them tie their shoes. It's going to take forever. But they need it. They need to learn. And it's a little bit like this.
Yeah, and I think what you just said there can translate so much into everyone's life is have patience with people. You don't know their story. You don't know what's gone on. You don't know why they've made the mistakes they've did. If a driver cuts you off, like, you may be upset because they cut you off in traffic. Well, what if they're trying to get to the hospital because their significant other just got in a wreck?
100%.
Like you never really know what's going on. And then ask why. Like, don't just immediately fly off the handle with your kids, with your friends, with your family. Like, hey, why'd you make this mistake? Now, was it just you're being an ignorant jerk? Then, yeah, now I can get upset with you. But you didn't. But if it's like, oh, you honestly didn't understand X, Y, Z, and it's, oh, I can wrap my head around that. Now we can Discord, and the world, like, everything you've said just would help make the world a better place if people would just stop thinking that everyone is out to get them and realize that we're all trying to get through this journey together. So,
yeah,
such great
it's
advice.
very easy to take things personally. But one exercise that I like to do, and again, in all honesty, I fail it many times. But when people do something that upset me, is try to give a good explanation for that. Let's say that someone booked a call with me and it's late, doesn't appear. Instead of, hey, this person doesn't care, or he could have warned me, or just maybe this person had to go to the hospital, had an emergency, something. Always, when you put yourself in a state where you believe there's a good reason for what happened, you judge much less, and things have a much smaller impact on you. And that's it, because we should not always be impacted by what others do. It's all internal. It's all our own faults and wars, and we have a lot going on already by ourselves.
Yeah, that's so true. Lourenço, this has been a great conversation. I appreciate you. As we start to wrap up, there's one question I like to ask all the guests, and that is, what is the most important lesson that you've learned in life that you want to share with all the listeners?
Most important lesson. That's a hard one. Well, if I would say the most important lesson is to never give up. When you decide on something, don't give up, because when there's a will, there's a way, and sometimes things seem impossible in one day, but a miracle can happen. Circumstances can change, and everything is possible. So don't ever give up.
That's so true. Why don't you take a quick second and tell the listeners where they can find you, where they can go to book a course or to follow you on social media?
So
book a coaching time.
Okay. The best place to find me is on Twitter under Performance Czar altogether. I also have a website with a blog that's czarcoaching.com. Then I also use Facebook and Instagram, but I'm not as active, so the best place is definitely Twitter or my website, and that's the place where you can book a call as well. Until the end of May, I'm giving a free one-on-one career strategy call. So if you are wanting to give your next step in the career, looking for a promotion or a raise, this is a great place to start, and I invite you to take this opportunity.
I love that. Yes, and I will make sure to include links down below in the description and the show notes to everything that Lorenzo just shared, so you can get in contact with him. Go get that free coaching call. If you've never tried coaching before, I highly recommend it. Lorenzo and I have chatted quite a bit, even before this podcast. This guy knows what he's doing. He's going to help you out, and he's going to help really change your life. And if you haven't been able to tell that from the conversation we've had already, so definitely go give him a call. Go check him out. Get scheduled on a call. And if you like this podcast, please remember to like and subscribe. So, Lorenzo, thank you so much for being a guest on the show today.
Chris, thanks for having me. Great questions. It was an absolute pleasure speaking with you.
Yeah, it was great. We're definitely going to have to get you on again later, because there's just you're a wealth of knowledge. So I appreciate it.
Thank you. My pleasure.